Facebook.
Good morning.
Good morning. How you guys doing? We'll wait a few minutes, wait for people to jump on here real quick, and then we can get set up here on my phone so I can see who's logging in, who has questions, who's going to be sending stuff to us, because we want to be able to answer some of the questions that come in. This morning we have an interesting topic. I guess I should have put it up there at the top before I pressed live. That probably would have been a good idea, wouldn't it? But I'll wait to share that here in just a few minutes because I want to make sure that we have a nice group of people on, and then we'll begin our conversation. Troy wasn't able to join us this morning. He'll be with us next week. And so we're here with the lone Rick Speck, my buddy, who's out of Safe and Just, Michigan there. Hey, your all's home office is in Lansing, correct, or Detroit?
Yeah, no, we're in Lansing. We have a house that we work out of.
Okay, all right. So they're out of, just as we're waiting for people to get on here, just give us a little background on what is Safe and Just. What's your all's main focus here in Michigan?
Well, as you know, I came from the ACLU Smart Justice campaign. And so when I was there, I worked on the Smart Justice campaign, which was all, about the prison legal system, the current state of bail, prosecutors, different things. But, the ACLU does a variety of things, right? So when I came to Safe and Just, it was because Safe and Just Michigan focuses on policy that is criminal justice related, period. Right? Yeah. As individuals, sure, we care about all kinds of other issues, right? But as an organization, as a mission and our vision, is to create safer communities through smarter legislation, legislation that heals and doesn't harm. And right. So we're always looking for best practices. We're looking for evidence-based research, that helps to inform on why we should be doing these reforms. It's not just because it feels good or it sounds good. It's because there's proof in the pudding, so to speak, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That's good. Yeah, because, the facts are, unless something changes at the legislative level, then nothing's going to change, right?
Yeah.
So you guys are such a big help. Huh?
That's what we've been faced with, right? Like Michigan, unfortunately, is one of the worst for locking folks up, right?
Yeah. You guys are such a big help to those of us that are the reentry stuff, because our primary focus isn't in the policy world. So it's unique when we can look at the, big picture perspective. We can see these different houses or camps all under one roof working together at the same thing. So you got your reentry people, love, what Asia Johnson, them are doing at the Bail Project. Right. And then you have the Aaron Kinso, and you got Mario, with the juvenile justice, and you, Troy, Kate, your all's team working on the policy stuff. And then you got Rich Griffin, them over here in Grand Rapids, working on restorative justice, smart justice campaigns. And then, Fresh Coast over here, that's, focuses on the reentry, but how we're all together. You know what I mean?
How we're all connected, but how we can all help inform each other's work, right? So as we're looking at policies and how do we change policy, how do we improve people's lives in Michigan with policy, we're also looking to, the reentry folks to see what are the barriers, what are some of the common things that, are popping up for folks that are preventing them from transitioning home in a meaningful way, right? Like I came home 3 times.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Well, why didn't I get it the first 2 times, right?
Yeah.
It was the way I came home. It was different. Absolutely. There's resources today. I think today, by and large, Michiganders are waking up and saying, we can't just keep penalizing folks, right? We can't keep punishing people into submission, that somehow by punishing people, we're going to make things better, right? And what we've done is we started criminalizing all kinds of behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And we did that with misdemeanors, for example.
Yeah.
Right? Everyone, oh, it's just a misdemeanor. Well, now, I mean, a misdemeanor has impact.
I don't want you to get ahead of our conversation.
Okay,
so I want to
go
make sure that we go into this question, because I can see you're getting ready to take off. You're like the old rocket the other day. You just ready to take off and go to space and take off with the conversation. So everyone, we got a nice group of people on here. So here's a topic that we wanted to discuss today with Rick was part of, okay, give everyone a snapshot about the task force. DJ Hilton here in Muskegon is a part of it. There's a bunch of people all throughout the state. Judge McCormick, who's the chief judge on the Supreme Court level, she's behind it. I've been to a number of the meetings.
She was the co-chair with Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist.
Yes.
Mary McCormick and Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist both co-chaired this.
Yeah. So tell us give us a 30-second
snapshot
deal. What is the task force about? What do they do?
Well, the task force was comprised of folks from law enforcement, from the community. There was, Monica Donner was on there from Arrow, formerly incarcerated, were on there. System Impact, we had survivors of violent crime. You had sheriffs, you had some legislators, senators, just all across, right? County executives, and it tried to include everybody in the sense that all branches of government and folks that were working, in nonprofits. For example, over at Detroit Justice Center, Amanda Alexander was on there as well. So it was a great group of folks that covered a wide spectrum of people, right? And so it kind of reflects who we are as Michiganders is how I kind of looked at it. Yeah. And what they did was they began to look at the pretrial conditions and what was driving folks to jail, for how long, the why of it. And what they did was they came away with 18 recommendations that should be legislation, right? That, for example, we have these bills coming up. We know today the Senate Judiciary is doing clean slate. Right, we covered that topic a couple weeks ago, so that was something that they also explored. But this was about trying to find out why are people in jail. And when we look at it, and we look at among common low-level misdemeanors, for example, citations, which could have been issued, were only issued a quarter of the time. So this task force was able to look at that and come up with these numbers. Pew Charitable Trust did a lot of the research, so they were a partner in this and lent resources and researchers to this. And they came up with these 18 recommendations, which are supposed to help us scale down our jails, right? And look at why people are going, and how we can stop that, right? Not just in big cities like Detroit, right? But the rural areas too, because there's 83 counties throughout Michigan. Wayne County is only one of them. Oakland County, Macomb County, these larger, just a few. We still have. And so what we realized through this, or what they realized, was this ain't just a big city problem. This ain't a Detroit and a Grand Rapids problem. This is a Michigan problem.
Yeah.
These things that are plaguing us, they're plaguing us from here to the UP.
Okay. So let's jump right into it. That's good. So that gives us kind of an overview of what the task force is about. So let's launch right into this, and let's talk about people being charged with misdemeanors and the damage that misdemeanors can do to us. Share a few thoughts on that, and then I got a couple myself after you go.
Well, we know typically for a misdemeanor, it's what? 93 days in jail and or a fine.
Yeah.
Right? But when we look at a lot of these low-level misdemeanors, what the recommendation is that these could have been citations, right? These could have been fines. These are really civil infractions. They're not crimes, right? So a misdemeanor essentially is a crime. It's a low-level offense that is punishable with jail time. So there's the punitive punishment, but for what? How is some of these low-level offense? Why are we so quick to criminalize? I guess that's my big question to folks, right? Does criminalizing behavior make us feel safer? Does it make us feel like, as a society, we're doing something to protect ourselves? Because the reality is 90 some days, all that's really doing is further harming the community. Mm-hmm. Right? That person who could be a mother or a father, right? The primary caregiver for children, maybe the primary breadwinner, they got a misdemeanor, a civil infraction, right? Is what it should have been. It should have been fined up to $100 or something. And that was the beauty of what the bill to decriminalize is pushing right now, is taking away the 93 days and limiting the fine to $100 in most instances. Mm-hmm. Right? Because we know what, $400 or better, typical family can't even handle that kind of emergency. So how much sense does it make to give somebody a $300 fine, $400 fine, or jail time? So a lot of times that was the quandary, $300 or 15 days.
Yeah.
Or 15 days and 300. I mean, it's really the discretion. Well, how does that push us forward as a society? How are we safer? Right? These aren't violent crimes. These aren't people that are going out and doing harm. I mean, how are we safe for spending $1,500, $150 a day to house somebody? How does that make us better?
Right. So give us an example of, for some who may be watching and may not understand the difference between, let's say, a misdemeanor, a high court misdemeanor, and a felony, and then a civil infraction. What's the what's a misdemeanor? What does that mean?
Well, misdemeanors are those low-level offenses that are eligible for up to 93 days in jail. Okay. That's the big.
And that could be
jail time. Now, a civil infraction is a fine, right? There's a fine associated with whatever action you did that was wrong. Just a fine, no jail.
Right.
Right now, a felony, we know in felony instances, folks can get probation, they can get county jail time, and obviously they can get prison time, all depending on the level of the offense, how many times a person may have offended. All these variables, right, come into place with whether we're going to sentence somebody to prison and or jail, because you can be convicted of a felony and only do county jail time. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So really, the difference is the length of sentence and the punishment, in my opinion. That's the big difference between all three, is the punishment
and the severity in it. So give it for those who may not know, give us a charge, a misdemeanor charge. What is it? Assault and battery, stealing. What would be considered?
Okay, a misdemeanor, for example, a low-level charge is third degree retail fraud.
Okay.
It's a misdemeanor.
And what is a third degree retail? What's that look like in the actual offense? They stole what?
Oh, I think it goes by the dollar value. I hate to speak on it.
They stole a pair of Hanes underwear that cost $25, as opposed to
like a $10 item, right? Like they.
Okay, so we're not talking about something that's a threat to the community. Mm-hmm. We're not talking about something that puts poses a threat really to anyone. It's not harmful. They're not going to hurt anyone, but you're stealing people's stuff. So take an offense like that. We agree they shouldn't be put in jail, right? Because what is the motivating factor behind it? Is it drugs? Or is there mental health issues? Mm-hmm. What's the motivating factor? So there possibly is something that we could actually treat that could probably get them to a place that they're not stealing, right? Because if you're stealing something on a misdemeanor level, there's got to be something. There's a motivating factor that probably is not right behind.
I mean, failure to appear, simple assault, right? Like you said, a simple assault, a failure to appear. You explain to me how a failure to appear, right, warrants being locked up. Now, if I come the next court date, I failed to appear, something happened, didn't happen, my ride didn't show up, bus was late, I didn't make it. However you slice it, I didn't make it that day, right? I come the next time to court, what happens? I'm here. What happens? I go to jail. I get arrested for failure to appear, but I'm here.
Yeah.
Right? Or you have a failure to appear, and now you know what comes behind that. So you realize, oh, wow. You know what I mean? Like, I missed my court date. And instead of saying, well, I better go down there and get this, people are like, I'm not going down there. They're going to lock me up. I'm going to jail. I'm not going. So what happens? It creates this further divide. Now people are essentially on the run, right? And they don't want to face whatever this petty charge is. And I say that petty because that's what it is. This petty charge that could cause them to go to jail, could cause them to lose their house, lose their job, all these things for this petty civil infraction that really could have just been a fine, a citation and a fine.
Right. So, okay. What resources or what would the court have at their discretion if an individuals continue to stop coming to court? What do they have in order to keep individuals? What would be the solution then? How would we do that on a high court misdemeanor? The courts say, well, the only thing I know I have a jail sitting next to me, and I know everyone does not like to go to jail. I can attest to that.
Right.
But if I take that out of the equation.
But what if we start treating them, right?
Huh?
We start treating them.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the root? Why? Why did they steal this? Why did they, was it a mental health issue? Was it they're just hungry? They were stealing because they're going to trade whatever they stole for food, or were they stealing food, right out of a grocery store? Were they stealing to feed themselves, feed their family? And so when you take some of this into consideration, what could we do for them, right? When we look at circumstances, when the citation is written, then what can we do? Well, we can offer some service.
Yeah, but what if they don't want the service? Then we get into conversation where now if we find individuals who are totally opposed to receiving resources or help, then what do we do? Is that a time to lock an individual up?
No, I honestly, when it comes, this is my personal opinion. When it comes to these minor offenses, right, mm-hmm. and the public is not at risk, I don't think there's ever a good time to lock somebody up. Yeah. If jail or prison was this healing space that provided, resources to somebody that took a look at what it is that is ailing them, so to speak, and we holistically started to heal, then I would say, hey, maybe jail ain't such a bad thing, right? But here's what we do know. Jail isn't that place. Those services aren't offered, right? People do lose their lives inside of jail. People do get sick. People are assaulted and killed. All these things happen right now. We have COVID-19. We have this huge pandemic. We have folks locked up in jail. How is the community best served? Jail just isn't a place that fosters that kind of change itself. Right now, if I got my pastor Nate coming in, right, and he's working with me and he's talking with me and he's seeing where I'm falling short and what Fresh Coast can do to help me that's a little different. Mm-hmm. But that's not happening on the regular. When you have jail populations that are 1,000 people, 1,200 people, like in Macomb County where I live, mm-hmm. how much can you put towards 1,200 folks? Right. How much energy? How much resources? Right now the jail's at like 300 because of COVID. They're down 600 people, 900 people. Yeah, they can help folks.
What's the crime rate like now?
Ain't changed. Crime rate's dipping. That was the funny thing. What Pew found was as the crime rate's dipping, how come our incarceration rate isn't? How come the rate of our jails isn't? when our crime rate's steady going down, our prison population's coming down, but the rate in which we're incarcerating folks in jails and prisons isn't changing. Why?
Yeah.
We have to ask ourselves why.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree. If we have individuals, and I'm a huge proponent of, if someone's a threat to the community in any way, shape, or form, especially violence, right? Those individuals, there is a social price that has to be paid. Because I don't want you around my family. I don't want you around my children. I don't want you around where you could potentially hurt someone in my family. And I'm not saying a forever thing, but there has to be some type of, from my opinion, some type of detainment so that we can actually deal with the underlying issues. Now, the thing is this, when an individual is incarcerated, like what you mentioned, it's not a healthy place. So that whole environment has to change on one end. Mm-hmm. Then we have to be able to, the environment on the inside has to change, and we have to be able to staff the individuals inside these places with the right people. And I think it goes back to where, I'm not saying everyone who works in the MDOC, there's a lot, I have friends that work for the Michigan Department of Corrections, but I think that they could take care of the Michigan Department of Corrections, the employees, a lot better so that you attract individuals who are better equipped mentally, emotionally to handle those kinds of environments. Because I've seen individuals come in one way, young, and 5 years later, they've literally turned into a totally different person because they can't handle that environment. You get trained and you're paid. You're going to have people that are going to talk to you abusive. You potentially will be jumped on. But you have to know that you signed up for that prior to it actually happening. Yeah. You understand what I'm saying? So, but when you have individuals who don't know how to handle those, because I've met and I just met, I've watched and seen with my own two eyes during my 12 and a half years incarcerated, a lot of corrections officers who popped off at the mouth, and they instigated a lot of nonsense in there. And the reason they did get jumped on was because, and I'm not condoning it saying it's right, but a lot of the times they were instigating it and egging the individuals on, and the individual got to a place where they just said, screw it, I'm getting them. But
you remember where we met, right? You remember the institution we were at?
St. Louis, yeah.
Right? A lot of staff got jumped on there, right? A lot of issues there. Why?
Yeah.
Because they had young staff. A lot of them were ex-military, right? It was a brand new prison and open.
Yeah.
They didn't and so we had these guards that came in with this attitude that this was the military.
Yeah.
Then you had a bunch of guys who were locked up, level 4, looking at either weren't acting right inside or doing big time. And we were like, no, we ain't in the military. You in our house. And so it was conflict from the beginning.
Yeah.
And it was punitive from the beginning.
Yeah. And a lot of it was, because that's part of the American culture where we have a punitive, when we think of the criminal justice system, it is a lot, not everyone, but the system is set up to be punitive in nature, as opposed to being rehabilitative, to habilitate people, to bring people to a place that may be the new version of them that's in a healthy spot so that when they do reenter back into society, they're not continuing to indulge in and continue to get involved with things that sent them to prison in the first place. And I think there was a lot of cocky COs that had power trips. That's what it was from my experience. And there was a lot of, and I watched a number of them get jumped on really bad. I'm not with that in any way, shape, or form, no matter what. But I in that environment and looking at the people, the two people involved, I mean, there's not this principle. I don't do that. So you can understand why they did it. I'm not for it, but I understand why they did it. But if we took care of them and they higher pay rate, if it was me, I like I think it's Germany, all their officers, have to go through a 2-year psychology course and understand trauma.
Yeah, they're like social workers.
Yeah, it's like social workers there. And they actually treat the men and women there who are incarcerated and doing time like human beings. They're not.
Well, they give them life skills, right? Like they cook their own meals. They don't have a child, like, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, the way that they're treating them is different. And I'm gonna just to give some context, I'm gonna read something real quick about traffic offenses that I'm actually pulling right from the pretrial task force report, right?
Yeah.
It says, and this is under the heading. It's on page 10, traffic offenses from their report that they issued. It says some of Michigan's traffic violations, such as careless driving and speeding, are civil infractions, meaning they are against the law and punishable with fines, but do not themselves directly lead to arrest or jail. Other traffic violations are criminal offenses eligible for arrest and jail, including common charges like driving without insurance. Oh, that's a good reason to put somebody in jail. I don't have insurance. I could see that. No, I don't. Being facetious, obviously. Or driving with the suspended license. Even excluding operating under the influence, these criminal traffic offenses account for 6 of the top 10 most common charges handled by courts. So driving without a valid license was a third common reason for jail admission in the task force 20 county sample. So they took a sample from 20 counties across the state in Michigan, and a person can have their driver's license suspended for a wide variety of reasons, many unrelated to driving safety.
Mm.
So you tell me, if you're just a knucklehead, but you drive fine, you're a knucklehead though.
Yeah.
Why am I taking your license? Why am I taking your ability to work, care for your family, move about? Why am I doing that for something that has nothing to do with the way you actually drive?
Mm-hmm.
Because we like to punish.
Yeah.
And we're punitive. And we're like the parent that wants to take that one thing from the kid that knows that's what's going to get them to act right. So you lose your PS4 today. Oh, the kid still does his thing. He's just like, well, I miss my PS4, but that ain't the end all be all, right? And so we love the stick a whole lot more than we love the carrot. Yeah. And so if we're talking about keeping people safe, this ain't keeping people safe. So also it says many unrelated, okay, such as failing to appear in court or a conviction for a controlled substance offense, right? In 2018, nearly 358,000 licenses were suspended for failure to appear and failure to pay fines and fees.
Wow.
358,000, not 3,580. 358,000 in Michigan.
Yeah.
We wonder why our jails are full.
Yeah.
We wonder why people can't get to work and take care of their, they ain't got a license.
Yeah. Yeah.
I got a buddy, 20 some years, ain't had a license. Works for Chrysler, has a family, can't drive a car, but he got to get to work every day to build them.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, it's like the punishment don't fit the crime. It's like
traffic violations make up half of all criminal cases in Michigan. It's right here.
Yeah.
Right here. This ain't stuff I'm making up, right? Like this is research. There's proof of this. It doesn't just sound crazy. It is crazy.
Yeah. Here's one of the other crazy ones. This one always got me. If you have 2 drug convictions on your record and you come home from prison, you can't get an EBT card. They won't help you out with food.
Right. Well, you sold drugs 10 years ago. You should be able to feed yourself today.
It's like, come on, man. Seriously? Because I have.
And if you come from a low-income family and they happen to be on state-assisted housing, federal housing, right?
Yeah.
You ain't living there.
Yeah.
I don't care if that's your wife and kids. You can't go there.
Yeah.
Because if you do, your wife and kids are going to lose housing.
Yeah.
So that makes sense.
That's just completely nuts.
You know that on average, what do you think the average is for people that get a misdemeanor and get sentenced to jail? What do you think like the average time that somebody would serve or be held in the jail for a misdemeanor to keep the community safe?
Off the top of my head,
just a guess.
I know a lot of people who have had misdemeanors and never go to jail except for initially, and then they get right out on a PR bond or something.
What if I told you 11 days on average? 11 days on average is what people do.
I can see that. Yeah.
Okay, so out of 11 days,
yeah,
that these people are gone, that they've lost their house, lost their job, right? How much safer have we been?
Right.
For the misdemeanor, for the guy that didn't show up to pay his fines and fees and lost his license and now is in jail for driving with no license. Yeah. See how we compounded this problem?
Yeah.
We took their license, and then what do? Then we criminalize them when they drive without that license.
Yeah.
In 11 days, like, what changes in 11 days? What preparations are made to keep the world safer from this person, right? Yeah. I know in 11 days, we're probably going to spend about $1,700 on that individual, keeping them incarcerated.
Yeah.
Right. And then I know when they come out, we're probably going to ask them to do what? We're going to ask them to drop or blow. Mm-hmm. In some instances, their crime doesn't even have anything to do with drugs or alcohol, but now it's a condition of their release.
Mm-hmm.
Who's paying for that? Yeah. Where's that money coming from? So, and how's that keeping the community safer?
Right.
If what we're focused on is community safety, I have an issue with thinking that, these small jail sentences are what's going to get us by.
Yeah. It's true. And
we've been doing it for how long? It ain't working.
Yeah. Yeah.
If that was the case and we just could punish our way out of this, we should be crime free because we punish like crazy in Michigan.
Yeah. Yeah.
For little offenses.
Yeah.
As well as big offenses.
True. So we, part of it, and what's so awesome about the work that you all do, Nation Outside, Just Leadership USA, a number of these other groups, is that the question or the conversations are surrounded around what is the solution to these things, and actually putting some action to it. Because as of right now, if you get pulled up, you're good. Everyone listening, the deal is if you don't have a driver's license, don't drive, because they're going 9 times out of 10 you probably will go to jail. So don't do it. But we have to collectively work on the solution to the problem here. How do we keep?
And for me, the solution is decriminalizing. To me, that's the solution. We have to decriminalize some of these violations, right? Like these are civil infractions.
Yeah. Yeah.
They don't warrant putting people in cages.
Yeah.
I get it. I'm all about accountability, right? Responsibility, all of those things. But I think we can be responsible and accountable without putting people in cages for petty offenses.
True. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not necessarily for putting anybody in a cage per se, right? But I also understand that community has to be kept safe.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I feel like we can even do that better, right? But for the sake of this conversation, when we're talking about these misdemeanors and decriminalizing and making a lot of these misdemeanors civil infractions, I mean, that's a solution.
Yeah.
We're taking away the criminal aspect of it. We're making it a civil infraction.
So what does that mean?
It means the judge can give you a fine from $1 to $100.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. In many of these instances, and there are some, like I noticed in some of the bill language for somebody that maybe was a repeat offender, it would go up to $200. But from what I seen, the highest one that I seen on the changes where they're decriminalizing a lot of these misdemeanors into civil infractions, they were basically $100 fines. And I was like, wow, at least they're not $500 fines, right? Like they're $100 fine up to $100. And I feel like, honestly, that's more manageable for the average person. You know, a $50 fine versus a $250 or $500, you know. And I feel like sometimes judges felt like $200 and or 10 days, right? Yep. So it's like if the person doesn't have $200, they're going to do 10 days. But that 10 days is really going to cost taxpayers $1,500.
Yeah.
$1,700. I mean, right. This person's coming out 10 days later. Nobody, I mean, how are they any better? How is the community any safer? How is that person equipped to succeed from where they failed? We don't do that. We don't care. Oh, you did your 10 days. You paid you gone. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, what have we done? We further caused harm, in my opinion.
No, I agree with you. Yeah. The definitely has to be some reinventing inside the judicial system, especially with the misdemeanor.
And guess what comes with those 93-day misdemeanors?
Huh?
Probation.
Yeah. You do like 6 months on district court.
You could be a year. You could be 2 years probation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know that Michigan has the 6th highest rate in the country of people on community supervision.
Yeah.
6th highest in the country.
Yeah.
Why? Because we like to punish people in Michigan.
Yeah.
The problem is it's not working.
Right. It hasn't accomplished the intended goal, right?
Not by a long shot.
So when that's the case, now it's time to go back to the drawing board and have these discussions. Okay. So on the flip side, what are the things? Are there things happening that is changing the narrative on this, that we are making some great strides? We're moving in a right direction. We're moving in a positive direction.
Absolutely.
Here, my friend DJ Hilson, he's the prosecutor in Muskegon County. I mean, he's a champion of the reform. He's a champion of making sure that justice is being served. And there's many, like Judge McCormick, right? I mean, she's a true champion of this whole thing. Who are some? What?
Well, who was your prosecutor before that? What was that guy's name?
Oh, Tony Tagg.
Look, I ain't from Muskegon. How I know about Tony Tagg?
If you're from Detroit, how do you know about him?
How do I know about Tony Tagg? I don't know, maybe the 18 and a half years in the penitentiary where I done heard about Tony Tagg and what he did, and you know how if you at the prison and you get caught with a thumbnail of marijuana, he's gonna give you 5 years. Like he gonna throw the book at you, right? Like that was Tony Tagg.
Yeah.
Right? That was the reputation Muskegon had.
Yeah.
And so they were tough. He hammered people. Yeah. Y'all shouldn't have no crime there because y'all knew who Tony Tagg was, what he was all about. You knew the police were down to enforce what he was about. Yeah. So you guys shouldn't have had no crime because you knew you would get all this time, that, didn't stop nobody.
It did.
Tony Tagg, all he did was he just kept prosecuting and causing more harm and creating more poverty in the community.
Yeah.
But to the average folk, he's great. He's keeping us safe.
Yeah.
He's the one causing more harm to your community than the people committing the crime. Because he's helping further this, right? And so it's going to take prosecutors, right? Like the guy you support today. You know, we have new prosecutors. We have this prosecutors race across state. Yep. You know, there's a contested race in Wayne County. There's a contested race in Oakland County. And so old versus the new, you know, the reforms, right? And I mean, the old way ain't working.
No.
We know that. We know that for a fact because we've all sat here and watched it for decades upon decades upon decades, through the war on drugs, through the tough on crime, through Clinton and Biden signing all these horrible legislation that led to mainly people just getting locked up for way longer than they needed to, right? And through all of that, we as a country are not any safer. Right? We're just not any safer because of these archaic laws. So my thing is, there's all this research that points to what can happen when we give people resources, when we give them a mentor, when we treat them for their whatever it is that ails them, whether it's substance use, whether it's mental health, whatever. Right? If we invest there, and not necessarily at the prison, but what if we're investing at the county jail level? Right?
Yeah.
And we're doing away with these misdemeanors, we're making civil infractions, and we're starting to treat people like people and not like animals that belong in a cage, because what we do here in the United States is we like to put everybody neatly in a little box. And so because me and you have felony convictions, right? If me and you were at a peaceful protest and one of us got arrested and something happened, they'd be like, well, you know he was wrong. Come on, he's a felon. He got what he deserved. So what? They cracked him in the head with that. So what if they maced him from 2 feet away and he wasn't doing anything? He's a felon. We put that label on people.
Yeah.
And then we feel like whatever happens to you, you deserve, because you got in trouble at some point in your life. Might have been 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, when you went to the joint, you was a knucklehead. You was young. You know.
Yeah.
You weren't as bright as you thought you were.
Yeah.
Neither was I, right?
Yeah, I know. I was one of the reasons why number of individuals formerly incarcerated folk, a bunch of us didn't go out to the protest because of what was happening at other cities. You know, people acting stupid. Because we know if we go and someone does something stupid, and you get caught up in the rapture of it.
Hey, you remember? So the other day, you seen the protest in Detroit where they had an issue with the young man. He was like a 16-year-old Latinx young man leading this march, right? Yeah. And some of the older organizers tried to overpower him and his message towards the end. And there was some other organizers that stepped up and didn't allow this young man's voice to be trampled on, right? And that person that kept the peace was who? Was somebody that was formerly incarcerated, that had served like 10 years. You know, my boy Nick Buckingham. He's out there on the front lines, got a degree in social work. You know, Jay Lusa Colhert, like doing all these great things. He's a felon. Yeah. He was out there keeping the peace. I didn't see nobody else from the community, these squeaky cleans. Yeah. I didn't see them out there helping. Yeah. I didn't see them out there keeping the peace. But I seen a guy who, by all rights, is a convict out there doing what needed to be done for the community. And he didn't do it for recognition. He did it. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. Yeah. That's good. I love to hear that. Especially when so what? He's a human being first. Absolutely. Wow. Yeah. That's good. I enjoyed this conversation today. We missed Dr. Rienstra, though. We got to get him back. Rienstra. I wonder what he was up to today, but I guess we'll find out later. We'll find out next week, right? Next week, yeah, because I'm going to ask you next week why he wasn't able to make it. That's not funny. As always, I appreciate I appreciate you having me on, and absolutely. I do want to let folks know that we are going to have a greater conversation on decriminalizing a lot of these misdemeanors here in Michigan on Monday at noon. Safe and Just will be hosting a webinar where we're going to have Senator Sylvia Santana on, and former rep, or I believe he was Speaker of the House, Craig DeRoche. I'm pretty sure you're familiar with him, right? Yep. So he will be the other speaker. We'll have our policy analyst, Joshua Ho, who we had on the CJ Cafe last week. He'll be on the panel. So it'll be a great panel. And some of the questions that you asked, Nate, that I didn't have some of the answers to, a lot of those questions will be answered Monday as they dig deeper into it. So both Senator Santana and Mr. DeRoche were both on the pretrial task force as members. So that'll be great. They'll be able to talk a lot more about the task force and how they came up with these remedies, what's kind of plaguing the Michigan judicial system.
So I'm assuming, but just could you guys put a link up for that in the comment section for individuals that want to get connected to this? I'm sure Kate's on it or someone there.
I'm
so
hoping
people can tune in and watch and get involved with that conversation. I think that would be great.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Good stuff. Well, let's plan on next week, Thursday, 10 a.m. right here on Facebook Live, and we'll continue our discussion in the weeks ahead. We're gonna, well, I know one we discussed yesterday about having, talking about reentry and having someone from MDOC come in and share and talk to us about what does the Offender Success Program, what is offered to everyone. And so we'll have some MDOC employees on discussing the whole reentry process and what's offered there. Some great people that I work with here in Muskegon, and then also we could talk a little bit about the Fresh Coast and obviously our experiences of returning home.
And I think too, next week, Nate, it's important to point out that we had that conversation on Clean Slate here recently. And so today they were having testimony at the Senate Judiciary Committee, but also next week there'll be public testimony. So we'll get some info out to folks on that. If they want to give some public testimony on these issues, that would be great. They can get with us. We can help prepare. Oftentimes they only have 3 or 4 minutes to get your message out. So we're pretty adept at helping folks form that message and getting a clear message to these legislators that they want to convey. So we'd be happy to help with that.
Great. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate what Safe and Just does. And,
appreciate you.
And we'll do. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And we'll be back next week, Thursday morning, 10 a.m. And we'll have some more discussions on this. And I'll post up, and so will Rick and Troy and Safe and Just. We'll post up a heads up before we get there about what we'll be discussing and stuff like that. Okay. Appreciate you guys. Love you. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
All right.